Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the HoopsLink podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Carlin. Here with me, old friend, old teammate, Tyler Larson. Tyler, thanks for jumping on the pod with us.
For sure. Happy to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah, man. Well, we go back to Casper College. I think 2011, 2012 was our time there. And since then, you went on to play at the University of South Dakota. You went and had a decorated career over in Europe. Came in, you've been coaching with the G League team for the Warriors in Santa Cruz. You hopped over and were spending some time with the Utes in Utah. And now back with the Warriors in Santa Cruz. For the listener, if you could maybe just walk through a little bit your experience, both from a player, maybe we just start high school, kind of quick run through college. I know you hit a lot of different places in Europe when you were over there and had a great career, and so maybe just a couple of highlights from there, and then what brought you back into coaching and how you've been enjoying that since.
All right, so we'll start from the beginning. So high school, I went to high school in California, Hogan High School, 9th and 10th grade. My freshman year, I played JV, and I was okay. And then my sophomore year, I got moved up to varsity, which I didn't want to do. At the time, I wanted to just play with my friends, have fun playing the game. But the coach, who's now my godfather, was like, no, you got to separate yourself because you're pretty good at this basketball thing, And then my sophomore year, I played okay, had my ups and downs as a sophomore in high school, normally would playing varsity. But I did show some shining moments. And so the seniors and everybody respected me. Then I moved to Las Vegas for my junior and senior year, where I went to Desert Pines High School. My junior year, I was tied in the state of Nevada for rebounding, tied for first in the state in rebounding. So that was pretty cool being 6'2". You know how tall I am.
Yep.
But one of my niches has always been offensive rebounding. So that was pretty cool, just coming into a new high school, not really knowing much. I had always been a guard, and now I'm playing 2 through 5. Our point guard was Pierre Jackson, who had a really decorated career, also still playing overseas. We had a pretty good team. We just, couldn't really put it together because we were high school knuckleheads.
Yeah.
So then my senior year, I had an okay senior year, but had no offers out of high school. And then my AAU coach got a call on the last day of signing day from Casper College, which is where me and you were together. And they called on the last day and they said, hey, we got a scholarship for you, full room and board, but the only catch is you have to leave tomorrow. And so I up and left. The next day, it came to Casper, Wyoming, and it honestly changed my life. A lot of people look down on junior college, and I remember even myself saying at one point, oh, it's D1 or bust for me, which was so naive. And so, I went to Casper College, had 2 years there, then went D1. I played with some great players in junior college, by the way. Like, as you know, the guys transferred from all over the place to come play at Casper. So it was a really good situation for me to get exposure that I had never had. And then I went to South Dakota for 3 years. I tore my ACL the first year, then partially retore it that summer. Going into my junior year, missed the first half of training, what we call in the NBA is training camp, but preseason. And, missed the first half of that, played about 10 minutes a game my junior year. And then my senior year, I really had a breakout year and got first team all league and stuff like that, which led into my professional career. I played professionally for 7 years, like I think you said, and, played in 8 or 9 different countries, ran through 2 passports. So it was just a priceless. I've been a point guard my whole professional career. In college, I was a kind of a tweener, played 1 through 5, but, short little brief message to high schoolers out there, get in where you fit in, and college guys too, high school guys, whatever, however you can get on the court and impact winning and impact the game. Don't worry so much about, I'm a 2 and they have me playing the 1, or I'm a 1 and they have me playing the 2, or I'm not a 5. Some of the most valuable minutes and some of the ways to, increase your minutes on the floor, which obviously increases your exposure, is getting on the floor at whatever position it may be. And so that's why I was blessed I was always a really good rebounder, and I really dove into that, and it blessed me to be able to play 1 through 5 in college. So I was, top 5 in the country in minutes played my senior year. And that was only due to because I would play any position, anything you wanted me to do, I would do it. Didn't matter what the coach, hey, I need somebody to go dive on the floor. I'm your guy. I need somebody to go guard that 5 who's killing us. I'm 6'2". Hey, I'm your guy. I need somebody to guard the point guard who's killing us. I'm your guy. So just having the mentality, no job is too small and I'm not entitled to anything. However I can get on the court to impact the game, I want to do that. I got off track, but
That's a good little nugget there.
yeah. So, I I had my professional career, then decided to retire, joined the Warriors, Santa Cruz Warriors, my first year out of retirement as an assistant coach / player development coach. And that was a priceless experience in itself. Just, got to work with high level G League players. We had James Wiseman come down that year to the G Leagues. Got to work very closely with him. Ryan Rollins, who's, having a great year for the Bucks this year. Just a plethora of different guys who are either playing high level Europe or in the G. So got to experience what I already, was experiencing as a pro, but as a coach. And then, Santa Cruz is one of those teams that works very closely with Golden State, very integrated. So got to, pick the brains of guys like Steve Kerr and Kenny Atkinson. That first year was great for my development, just getting into coaching and understanding exactly what they're looking for in an assistant and a player development coach. But these high level players like Steph or Jonathan Kuminga or whoever, what they're looking for in a coach also, as far as development and as far as, who they want to work with. Like, do you know what you're talking about? Do you have a plan for them? Are you very locked in on what they need as an individual, or are you just doing what you would do with anybody? And so, that's another thing, like you said, with parents, when you're, or AAU coaches or teams, like when you're going to pay a trainer, make sure they know what they see in your child and what they want them to get better at. That's a sign of a really good player development coach, I believe, somebody who has a plan, and not just, flying by the seat of their pants. Learned a lot that first year here, learned how to do all the video stuff, learned how to do scouts. I had never done those, obviously. I'd read a bunch of them and memorized a bunch of them as a player, but never as a coach. So got to really lock in that way and see a different side of the game, which I think, played, and then being able to switch over as a coach, you get like kind of the best of both worlds and the view of both worlds, and understanding that like on the coaching side, we want to, I don't know if micromanage is the right word, but we want to like be able to control things and think we can put our players in the best situation possible. And then they should be able to do exactly what we see. But on the player side, me being a player, especially at the point guard position, you understand that the game is so gray, like things are not clear cut always, and the game is moving so fast. You have to make reads in a split second, and I might see something, or my player might see something differently than I might see it as a coach. Being able to understand that, I think, has been able to help me relate to guys in a great way. And I think that's one of the biggest things as a coach that you can do, is be able to relate to your guys and build trust and build that foundation where they can communicate with you, you can communicate with them, build that trust so you can be hard on them. That was another little sidebar. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good. You can keep them coming.
So after Santa Cruz, that first year in Santa Cruz, went to Utah to join my former head coach from South Dakota, Craig Smith. He was at South Dakota, and then he was at Utah State, went to the tournament, I think 2 or 3 times, and then he went to Utah. And, that was another amazing experience, being able to be in the last year of the Pac-12 and see the great teams. I'm from Oakland, California, so I've followed Cal basketball. I followed Stanford basketball. Like, those teams that have been in the Pac-12 for so long, found teams, UCLA, USC, like all these teams being able to be in those arenas and see how those legendary places do things and these legendary coaches do things at that level. Being able to be on that side of things, college, and see how the players think, especially in the NIL era where guys are getting paid. So that can kind of validate you negatively sometimes, make you think that you already made it. Coming from the NBA, then going to college and seeing like what really made it is, and then seeing guys think that they made it, was an interesting thing for me to see, because I was, and guys really trusted my opinion when I told them like, hey, like, I know I'm so happy that you guys are getting compensated. It would have been lovely if that happened in 2015. But like at the same time, you have to be able to manage your expectations and adjust your perception. It's not, oh, I got paid, so that was the final goal. If that is your final goal, that's fine. But is your goal still to make it to the NBA? Because if it is, there's still a lot of work to be done. And money blinds you of the end goals. I got to really be a soundboard for that. And then, we got to go into the Big 12 after the Pac-12 dissolved my first year at Utah. Then we went into the Big 12. We were picked preseason 16th. And going into the last chance to be top 5 before, unfortunately, they let our head coach, Craig Smith, go. And then that was a whole nother plethora of challenges that came with that.
Yeah.
But we ended out the season pretty good, had a successful year in the Big 12. I was the offensive coordinator there. We were first in the Big 12 in assist percentage, which I looked at as a win because that's exactly what we had to do going into the Big 12 is be able to move the basketball at a high level. And then, we were top 2 in rebounding. So being able to do that with those teams was a win for us in that book. But obviously, we wanted to end the season better. And then now being back with the Warriors organization has been amazing once again. Obviously, the amount of wisdom and knowledge we have on this team this year and being able to go through training camp with them and see how they install everything, see how Steve manages, everybody and everything as from players to coaches has been amazing.
Yeah, man, that's awesome and a hell of a career, and so I definitely want to jump in and unpack some of those moments and time periods with you. Before I get into any of those kind of specific time periods, I am curious because I know you talked about being one of the leaders in in Nevada in rebounding. I think your senior year, I was trying to go over some stats before we got on. Did you lead the Summit League in rebounding your senior year as well?
I did. I was the shortest person to ever lead the league in rebounding.
Yeah, I think I saw that. It was 6'2", led the league in rebounding. It was 43 nationally in rebounding, and then as well to have to be a coach and have Utah be number 2 in the Big 12 in rebounding. Is that something that like you ever thought, oh, I'm just gonna go and be a good rebounder? Was it natural instinct? What makes a good rebounder?
I would say a relentless pursuit of the basketball, first and foremost. You can't, as Coach Smith would say, you got to love the taste of your own blood because you might get bloody, you might get elbowed in the eye, you might elbow somebody in the eye. You have to have a relentless pursuit of the ball. And I think you see that across the board on all the great rebounders today, but especially in the past when the game was probably, a lot of people would say more physical, Dennis Rodman, he was elite rebounder and just, nobody really wanted to see that man. So I think that's a big thing is having a relentless pursuit of the basketball. Something that always helped me was being able to read angles of the basketball, when it was being shot. If it was long shots equal long rebounds. So if a ball was coming from the corner, I'm probably going equal and opposite. Or if it's coming from different angles on the floor, I'm being able to read where they're gonna bounce most of the time and being able to get to it faster. And then a big thing that I spoke about in Utah, which individually when I'm watching film with guys, I always talk about being in limbo. Which is something that I stat personally myself. And then I know I've heard some NBA teams stat it, maybe some college teams stat it, I don't know. But limbo is basically your ability to move on to the next play. No matter if it was a negative play or a positive play, how quickly can you move on to that next action? So, I think tying that into rebounding, okay, you get a paint touch kick, you spray it, it goes one more. How quickly can you react to that ball being shot and move on to the next action? Thinking where it's going to come off, how quickly are you moving on to what's next, and so I think that makes a good rebounder too. Somebody who can just keep moving on, no matter what happens in the game. You turn it over now, are you not going to crash the offensive glass that next possession? You got an offensive foul by going over the back. Are you not going to crash the glass that next offensive possession? How do things affect you? Or do you allow things to affect you? I think tying that into rebounding, that both of those things, elite pursuit and moving on and being able to read what's going to happen next. Kind of like chess, being 2 steps ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good advice. And so as we think about Casper, it's funny because I'd never actually heard you tell a story of how you got to Casper before. And so hearing that it was a phone call, then you got to get on the flight the next day. That was almost what my experience was like with Casper as well.
Wow.
I had been recruited by a bunch of D1s, and there was with the clearinghouse and Australian classes versus the NCAA. It just got messy, and I thought I was going to be able to take a class and get in. It turns out I wasn't. So I was nearly getting ready to commit to New Mexico Junior College because they were the only JC that had ever kind of stayed in contact with me, and I wasn't overly excited about it because me and that coach had some funny conversations at the time. And all of a sudden there was a friend from back home, Rosalie, who was on the women's team, and I get a call from Coach Davidson, and it's oh, hey, yeah, we've been tracking you, we heard you're looking for a junior college, do you want to come? I was well, I was literally about to sign up with this other school, but if you send me your stuff, I'll check it out. And he's all right, I'm going to send you an email right now. And I looked over it, and it was already getting close to needing to decide where I was going to go. And I had these kind of 2 options, and I'm All right. Well, yeah, no, at least I know somebody in Casper. So yeah, sure, like let's go. And then they're like, all right, your flight's booked. And I was flying out of Australia that weekend, and Coach Russ was picking me up in Denver and making the trip all the way through Wyoming. And man, that was fun. But I do think that you talked about like that idea of D1 or bust, and everyone has, you know, kind of like goals of Division One and ideals of grandeur. And, you know, I think out of high school, that's like, you know, ask any high school kid that plays, like, what do you want? I want to play D1. You know, when you get to, I guess, that point of like junior college, and maybe it's, you know, if you could now give yourself advice as a high school senior, and making that move, especially now with just like how college basketball's moving, that a lot of kids that usually could go D1 now having to go D2 and then portal up, or are going to have to go junior college just to get some more exposure and kind of prove that they can do it against college age play as opposed to high school guys. What would your encouragement be, or what would you say to high school guys that, you know, maybe JUCO seems like the route they're going to have to go, and, you know, how can they kind of work through that to make sure that, you know, they're in a good headspace and that they can still kind of progress through and reach their ultimate goals?
I would say, you know, I could go the basketball route, but first, what I have to say, because I think this is like, I don't know, like something that's in the youth nowadays is like entitlement, you know?
Yep.
And I would say try to fight that as much as humanly possible. Like as in the youth, and I was young too, and I was a hooper too. And you want to show this like confidence that you believe in yourself so much that it can turn into entitlement. So I'd say, you know, balance that fight in yourself between, okay, I need to be confident and make sure like nobody can break me, and I don't care who I'm on the court with. I can hang with these guys. But at the same time, fight that feeling of like entitlement where I, you know, care so much about what others think that I have to play this role. Like, you know, I don't know if I can say this on here, but like my shit doesn't stink. You know, like you want to fight that, because that can turn
Yeah.
college coaches off instantly, because that's a sign of immaturity. And so that goes right into my next point. Like, I think a big thing, especially when I was in the college game at Utah, you know, we had a mature team. So if we were going to bring in a freshman, we needed this person to be not as mature, obviously, not going to expect that, but like be mature, be able to come in and, you know, fit in with what we already have and be a add to it and not a minus. And so I say, you know, to young guys who are trying to fight to be try to be mature. That will make you stand out, because more high school kids are immature than not, and that's what I think turns college coaches, with along with other things, like turns college coaches to say, okay, I'm only recruiting the portal, because these guys are going to be more mature, their bodies are going to be more developed, they're going to be able to take coaching, they've been coached before. So as a high schooler, what that would tell me as a player is, okay, I need to be a student of the game, because I need to be able to match that maturity that I'm going up against with these older players. I need to be a student of the game. I need to make sure I'm, you know, taking care of my stuff, obviously in the classroom, but getting in the gym, working on my game, getting in the weight room, taking that just as serious as I do as the court. You know,
Yeah.
like there are a lot of people who are really good at basketball. They still can't play in the NBA. Why is that? Because the weight room is just as important as the court. You know what I mean? So I think those things, you know, that you look at an older player and say, oh, well, they're going to have this, this, and this, and this. Well, as a high schooler, okay, you see that. Okay, how can I close that gap? Is, you know, by taking the small things that you don't think are serious, like the weight room and like studying film, studying the game. Maybe your coach can't get on the computer with you and watch film, but you're on YouTube researching stuff, listening to podcasts, you're doing different things like that. If it's that serious for you, you know, trying to make it D1. But also that goes right along with, like, there's nothing wrong with going JUCO. There's nothing wrong with going D2. There's nothing wrong with that, because if you're a baller, you're going to be sought out and you're going to be found,
Yeah.
especially in today's day and age with social media, with, you know, the amount of film that gets put out, you know, that people can see. You can put your name in the portal and somebody will find you if you're really putting in the work. My godfather used to say, if you really want to make it in basketball, you got to eat, sleep, and drink this game. And that was the best advice he ever gave me, because I did. And I think that, you know, that's a big reason why I was able to have the career that I had, was because of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And it's good hearing you say that stuff. I think that, you know, when I reflected back after I left Casper, and this was probably still when I was in college, or I just recently got out, I always looked at my teammates and like, who were the guys that were making it, and like what were they doing that allowed them to to move forward. And I think that when I thought of you, or when I think back into the team, and I remember you, one of the things that I remember Coach Davidson would always say, like, hey, like, there are no like locker room lawyers. Don't sit in here and complain about if you're getting this or if you're getting that. Like, just go out like and work and like let your game do the talking. And I think that was something that I always respected about you when we were at Casper, is that you were just no nonsense. You just got in the gym, you got it done. And then obviously getting to see, have success at the D1 level, going on and playing basketball overseas, and having a great career there. And so, I often think that, I mean, for both of us going to junior college, like, we didn't even know what college basketball was going to be like till a week before we committed, and I think that, again, if you asked a lot of players, like, hey, like, like, what do you want to do with your college career? What do you want to do afterwards? I think a lot of players will say, oh yeah, I want to play professionally, and whether it's make it to the NBA or play overseas or whatever it might be. And so many high school kids, whether it's entitlement, I mean, you talked about social media, and there's definitely the pros of, the exposure. There's also the kind of needing to prove yourself to other people. And so I think everyone wants to, be a high school junior or senior and say, yeah, I'm committed to this school. And so I can show to like all my friends, like, hey, like, look how good I am. But, there's plenty of guys that commit to a D1 and then have to portal down because, that they thought they made it then, didn't put in the work, don't have the success, fall away. There's plenty of D1 guys who, maybe have decent careers, but once it's done, they want to play at another level, but they can't. And so I think that basketball is just one of those things that there's so many pathways, there's so many ways to get there, that just because, at one point, maybe you're not exactly where you want to be, that doesn't mean you're stuck, and that you can continue to move forward. So, I mean, it's great to hear that stuff. And obviously for the listeners that, maybe don't know you as well, that's, this is stuff that you're living out or did live out in your career. And so, I think you're a testament to putting in the work and staying kind of true to the game and the grind and getting that reward. So
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. That means a lot.
yeah, no, of course. One of the things as well, I think I noticed with my playing career, I had a great high school career. I got to play for the Australian team. I had success at that level. And then I got to Casper, and it was just kind of where, like, the work I thought that I was doing, which was more than most high school kids, I was like, this is like the bare minimum. Like, I'm not doing enough, whether it was like going to the weight room more, or, I would think that I would, go in the gym enough, and then I would see guys still working or going back up, and it's like, yeah, like, we just got done with practice. Like, I'm trying to go and take a nap, and everyone's like going back up to get shots up. I was like, oh, there's more work to be done. And then, when I got to the professional level, I thought I put in a lot of work in college, and I was like, oh man, like, there's more. Can you talk through your experience with that? And, going from high school to college, obviously, I mean, you played at, a high level in Europe. And then maybe even now, like, working with some of the G League guys, like, what their schedules are like. What was that experience like for you as you kind of climbed that ladder and, saw that expansion of the game at each level?
It was very similar to yours. Like, I mean, honestly, in high school, I really didn't work like a lot. I played a lot of open gym. That's what I thought was working. Like, was in the gym with my friends, playing open gym, dribbling 15 times and get to my shot and making tough shots. I thought that was what work was. And then I learned very quickly when I got to junior college. And I didn't really have to learn the hard way. I pride myself. And so, giving this to whoever listens to this, like, I really pride myself on not having to learn things the hard way and like learning from other people's mistakes. And so when I went to junior college, I knew that it was like, I knew I was the last scholarship guy. I knew that, it wasn't like I was the guy coming in. So I knew I had to prove myself. There was no entitlement at all. And knowing that the only reason I'm here is because the work that I've put in was like, okay, so when I get here, I got to work even harder. So it really wasn't a surprise when I got there of like, oh, wow, these guys are working so hard. It was just like, I got to tone it up a bit and really dive in if this is really what I want. And luckily, like, I know, some people, for like, as far as education, school is really tough for people. sometimes. And so I understand that side of it. And I was blessed not to, like, school was always kind of easy for me, like going to
Yeah.
class, doing homework, tests. Like I've always, been able to really retain information and do that well. So when it came to getting up at 6 a.m. and getting in the weight room and then getting 500 shots up before class, that wasn't a problem for me because I already had taken care of my schoolwork. And, I wasn't behind there to, oh, I can't go get in the gym because I got schoolwork to do or I got
Mm.
study hall. Like I never had to
Yeah.
have study hall because my grades were always on point. And
Yeah.
so that's where I was blessed. And I, once again, like talking to high schoolers, like handle your schoolwork and you'll be able to get more time in the gym. But when you don't handle your
Yeah.
schoolwork, that ends up taking away from the time you'd be able to put in the gym. A lot of people like don't even want to go to school anymore. So, but I'm getting off topic. So when I was in junior college, I was getting in the gym in the morning, working in the morning, going to class, come back and have practice. And, with Coach D, you never knew how long the practice was going to be and you never knew how it was going to go. And then coming back at night and getting work in, like that was really the first introduction of like, okay, we're really putting in work here. And then, to go D1, it was kind of similar, very, very similar. I mean, in junior college, I was waking myself up to go work out at 6 a.m. When
Yeah.
I went D1, now being scheduled to work out at 6
Yeah.
a.m. You see the difference? Like now
Yeah.
somebody's telling me I have to do that. And so, it gets a little tougher then when, you got a scheduled lift at 6 a.m. You got to wake up and then still put in your work. And, you know, going from D1 to the pros, what I realize and even now working with guys is the work is much more intentional. Like I talked about, you go to the open gym, you go to the gym and play ones, twos, threes with your friends, and that's all good. Like I think that's a lost art. Like going to open gym and working out is very good. But I also think there needs to be intentional work. Like being in the gym for 2 hours and not having any points of emphasis is not as good as getting in here for 30 to 45 minutes and really working on your footwork, working on being shot ready and getting your shot off as quick as possible. That's one of the big things I noticed with a lot of the high level pros like Steph and like, Clay is these guys, when they work out almost at full speed. And it almost seems like they're going faster than they would in a game to make the game even easier. I know SGA had an interview where he said, every time I work out, I envision the best defender in the NBA guarding me. So that way, when I'm working out, I'm going so hard that when I get in the game, the best defender in the NBA is not guarding me every night. So it's easy,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think, guys got to be a lot more intentional the higher you go up about your work and know your weaknesses, know your strengths, master your strengths, work on your
Yeah.
weaknesses. Know what you're good at, know what you're not so good at. And so that was something I noticed that was big playing professionally and then now coaching, especially at the highest level in the NBA is like, there's very intentional work being done.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that when you talk about schoolwork for the high school kids, and this is a conversation as a high school coach I have a lot. Obviously, if you're below a 2.0, one, you're not playing anyway. Two, like, if you're sitting at like a 2.1, 2.2, and you want to go D1, and that coach to you said like looking at maturity, well, GPA is kind of one of those signs. Is this guy take care of business in the classroom? And those coaches can't come and sit in with you. So what they're going to probably take away is, what does that GPA look like? What are the type of classes they're taking? And so I tell my kids, like, hey, if your GPA starts with a 3, there's probably less concerns. Obviously, the higher, the better. But if it starts with a 2, straight away, there's a question mark next to your name. All right, can they hack it here? What's the high school level like, especially if you're a high academic school? And then to your point about, well, like, if you miss, homework or you got a test that you didn't prep or study for that now you have to do it. I mean, the amount of times that advocates tell me, I can't do this workout today because I got a test to study for. And, I mean, obviously, hey, school comes first. You got to take care of that because if you don't, none of this matters. But like, if you miss the workout, you can't get the workout back, right? Like you have to go and miss the weight room because, you got to go and prep for this. Well, all right, like, you miss weight room. And so I think that management, that time management is such a big piece for young kids. And then the point about SGI, I hadn't heard that interview, but I tell my guys all the time when we're working out, like, you got to have an imagination, like, when you're playing. Like, if you just go out and you just shoot and you're in an empty gym, you never will just shoot a shot with no one in front of you in an empty gym
And
in a game.
comfortable, like a lot of
Yeah.
guys shoot it like comfortable, like, oh, they catch it, they load, they get it off, everything feels good. But, that's what I talk about is like battling that entitlement. Like you also have to battle comfortability. Like in uncomfortable places, that's when great things are birthed and that's when great
Yeah.
things happen. So you got to battle comfortability like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, so I don't want to do this. No, the opposite. I'm uncomfortable, so I really want to dive into this and I really want to see if I could push through this because I know that this experience is going to help me out in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when we do like youth camp and we're dealing with like middle school kids and no one wants to use their left hand because they're going to miss, I'm like, look, like right now, like if you miss left hand layups in here as a seventh grader, it doesn't matter. You know, matter of fact, like if you go and like you go play AAU with seventh grade and you try to shoot like the left hand on the left side every time and you miss them all, it doesn't matter. No one's in the gym wondering if like, oh, is this guy going to make it or not? But by the time you get to me at the high school level, if you've done that, both hands will be fine. But if you want to go right every time because that's comfortable, guess what? Now, like we've got scouts on you that say like, hey, if you cut off his right, he's a very good right-handed player. He's not a great left-handed player. And if we can take that away, and we definitely have scouts like that, is hey, like this guy's he's a 3-4 star in his right hand or his left hand, and you flip him the other way, like he's got no stars. So just climb in on that side, and we're gonna be just fine. And the amount of guys that average 20 something all of a sudden average 6, and all right, well, that was easy enough. So I think that
100%.
message of being
100%.
uncomfortable is
One of the best things that my brother ever did that ever happened to me for like basketball purposes. My brother, when I was really young, I'm talking about, I picked up a ball when I was 4 years old. I'm saying when I was probably 5, 6 years old, he did this to me. I was the only one to dribble my right. I remember this. This was obviously like a moment I remember from being that young. He's like, nah, you need to start dribbling with your left. Like you need to get a left hand. Like, yeah, your right hand is your dominant hand. You need to get a left hand. And that was one of the best things that ever happened to me because for one, I got really good at dribbling with my left hand. But for two, it put me in a space of uncomfortability and made me understand like, okay, I'm not good at this. This is how you get better at it. Is being uncomfortable. Then you get better and then better and then better. And eventually now my left hand, I mean, a lot of coaches would say, yo, send him right. Don't send him left because going left,
yeah.
he could do everything. Going right, I mean, I could still do some good things, but just I was super efficient to my left. So yeah, being uncomfortable, especially when you're working on your game, and even I would say in some cases in life, like being uncomfortable is a space where you want to be. If you're comfortable all the time, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. My dad, he was a high level athlete, but he was never a basketball player. But he liked to get ideas, and I didn't even know what it was like. I didn't even think YouTube was around when we were in high school. Maybe it just started. It was a DVD or something. But it was Carlos Boozer talking about how his dad tied his right arm with the belt to his body so he could only use his left hand. We didn't do the belt, but my dad would pin down my right hand. So I couldn't use it, and we just go work on the left hand. And again, like he had never played basketball ever, and if he did, he looked horrible. But he was like, "All right, well, this guy's in the NBA, so if his dad did this, then this is what we're gonna do." And so I think that part of being uncomfortable, I mean, probably for the high school kids, this metaphor maybe won't be as great, but we were just talking about before we got on. We've both got young kids, and so my wife and I, we've got this app that when my daughter was born, it would talk about all the different phases of development, and there was always like a fussy phase that came before the skill acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so funny because I started thinking about like, man, I was like, I think this just keeps going forever. Like when I wanted to get a skill, like when I wanted to start trying to learn how to shoot a jump shot, I'd never made jump shots. I sucked, but I would keep going. And I remember getting real mad, but I would keep going. And then eventually I would get the skill. But all right, this is good. Now you want another skill. Like there's the phase you got to go through that it's uncomfortable. It's frustrating. You're likely going to get annoyed, but you got to persevere through that. And then you get the acquisition. It becomes easy. And then it's about what can I add next. So yeah, I think about living in that space of uncomfortability if you want to try to achieve big things is definitely key.
100%.
And so you've been with the Warriors, moved over to Utah, back with the Warriors. You mentioned it a little bit, kind of the NIL era. Now that college basketball is, especially at that kind of, I mean, Pac-12, Big 12 level, like it's getting closer to professional sports. What do you see as some of those similarities or also some of the differences between, the G League or the NBA and like a higher level Division I program?
Well, I think that was a big area where I was able to add value at Utah, coming from like, I had just retired from playing basketball 2 years before that. I've signed a bunch of contracts, read a bunch of contracts, had agents. I've had my agent particularly the whole time, but I've had different agents reach out to me, and the whole deal with tampering and all that. Like I've dealt with all that. I really added value in that area, going into the NIL space in college because it is turning into semi-pro sports. Like guys are getting paid, guys are signing contracts, guys are thinking about what their next job is. You're getting a new team, pretty much year to year. A lot, and it's not just one team, it's not just Utah, it's a lot of teams. So being able to understand how to navigate egos, manage expectations, deal with different people, in the portal when you get them on campus, what they're looking for, so on and so forth. It's pretty much the same thing I dealt with my whole professional
Yeah.
career. So, I think it's healthy, but you have to know how to navigate it. I was happy to see that GMs have been introduced. I was happy to see that, people from pro sports are now integrating themselves in college sports because they know that landscape. And that's kind of being welcomed, but like I said before, for the player, you have to be able to manage, what your perception is of yourself now. Once you get, however much money, to
Yeah.
me at South Dakota, $50,000 would have been a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, $100,000 would have been insane. So, however much money you're getting paid, you got to be able to manage, okay, yes, this is money. I should probably invest it or, do something smart with this money first and foremost. Second
Yeah.
off, like, what's my end goal? Don't be
Mhm.
blinded by dollar signs.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, that's the case, which is not even their fault. If I was young, getting paid a lot of money, I'd probably be a little blinded too. But I would hope I have somebody in my corner or somebody on the staff or somebody I trust that is giving me wisdom to look past that. Like, hey, there's more at the
Yeah.
end of the tunnel. There's more than
Yeah.
just I was just telling somebody the other day, like a couple of regrets I have in my career are because I followed the money. And so I wish I would have taken less money for a different situation or whatever the case may be. Um, money can be good and it can be bad depending on the way it's used.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good insight, and with how much money is going around and guys getting in the portal, I think that one, what you touched on, the financial management piece is huge because, I could tell you if I was 19 or 20 and I was getting the dollars that some of these guys were getting, like my first thing would be like, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? But to your point, investing and having someone that's a little bit smart, a little bit wiser, saying like, hey, like this can either set you up for the long term or you can just be broke when you leave college. And,
Broke when you
you
leave
know,
college, and this will hurt any future endeavors that you wanted to get into regarding basketball because
yeah,
now you've gotten paid all this money and you've gotten all this notoriety, and now you go out there and you stink it because you think that you're really, really good and you stop working because you got paid. And now 2 years down the line, you'll never see this type of money again. And any professional team is like, oh, wow, like I can't pay that guy because if I pay him, he's not going to show up. He's going to think like the money validated him. And so fighting that validation and entitlement that money gives you is a big key for a lot of guys in college. And the guys that can do it, obviously you see them flourish, and then, some don't.
yeah. It always, I think I've quoted this article one time on the podcast before, and it's a really random memory, but I remember picking up a Slam magazine. It was just after Kevin Garnett had signed his max deal with the Celtics. And he's like, you can tell who the real ones are that after a contract year are still going just as hard. He's like, everyone wants to, put up big stats for a contract year they want to sign. He's like, but you can tell who really wants it once they get the money. And so, I think that applies now to guys that are even younger. And to, like you said, that the NBA is still a whole different level, that you can talk about the percentages of how many kids go from high school to college. Well, the percentage is even lower that go from, college to the NBA. And so, if you really want it, you got to be that complete package and kind of manage it all and be willing. Because like we've talked about, the college guys looking for maturity, I'm sure that for the NBA scouts, those are all things that they're following up on. That, I mean, they have been and will continue to invest, millions and millions of dollars. They're not just going to bring anyone into their program. They want to know that they're getting the right people. So in some ways, I guess, seeing how players act once they get money is probably a good inclination for a lot of the NBA GMs that, now they don't have to wonder, hey, if we, give this guy a bunch of money, is he still working just as hard, or is he going to be content and then out of the league in a couple of years? So, no, really good insight there.
100%.
And then, I mean, being with the Warriors, I mean, if we think about, at least in the last decade, probably the most successful, NBA program, I mean, we've got generational talents. I mean, Steph, KD came through there. Obviously, Clay was with you guys for a vast majority of the last decade. Draymond, Steve Kerr, obviously, has kind of had a legendary NBA career, as, probably more so as a role player, but still being with the Bulls, being with the Spurs, multiple championships, playing with Pop, now kind of getting him to see him, run the Warriors, run, Team USA, gold medals, NBA championships. You've touched on some of it a little bit, but can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on the Warriors culture, some highlights that you've been able to take away, or maybe something that you learned for the first time once you got to be a part of their program?
The Warriors organization is no surprise why they have been so successful. Just from top to bottom, from Steve to Steph to us down here in the G, like everything is so streamlined and everybody kind of falls under that umbrella of the humility and the, professionalism and the happiness and the joy that Steve and Steph carry with them every day. Adding the vets of Jimmy Butler, you got Draymond, you got Al Horford, and then you got the younger guys who just, fit that bill as well. And add to those guys is also like Brandon Podziemski, very, very mature human, like it just fits right into exactly what the Warriors do. And so joining this organization, I was like, wow, it's really no surprise why they are who they are. And then getting to be on the inside, like, a lot of times as coaches, what I've realized from being a player and now a coach is like small things that may not matter kind of bother us, right? Like maybe a guy came in with his shoes untied, or maybe a guy came in not ready to go today. And instead of giving him time to get going and giving him a chance and then maybe talking him to him the next day, maybe you get at him right then in practice, but you have no clue
Yeah.
what he's going through, on the other side of things. And so I
Yeah.
think, just watching Steve and the way he operates, and then even Lane Wilson down here in Santa Cruz, the head coach down here, who's been the head video coordinator in Golden State the last 4 or 5 years, just the grace that they give their guys and how they view them as people before basketball
Mhm.
players,
Yeah.
and so they're able to relate to them a lot better, but also understand and pick their battles, kind of like we do with our children, right? Like you got to pick
Yeah.
your battles. You can't get mad at every single thing. You'll be mad all day.
Yeah.
And so the culture here, like I love that part of it, is it's not all about the ball. Obviously, championships is the standard here because they've just proved that they can do it at the highest level so many times that it's kind of an expectation now, right?
Yeah.
But the human side of things and the compassion and the grace that is given from players to coaches, from coaches to players, it's like we're all in this together. That's why we have this saying, just us. And, it's really an understanding in this culture that, hey, we're all in this thing together. And like I said, it's from top to bottom. So it's been amazing to see from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think one thing that's funny, anytime I like interview someone that's won a lot of championships, I've been around a program that wins a lot of championships, and that's kind of the standard. It's always the people first. It's kind of the foundation of the culture, that it's about how you do it, not necessarily the result that ultimately kind of leads you to that. And so, it's not really surprising to hear that if the big emphasis on people showing grace, having compassion, but accountability, work ethic, attention to detail, all those things, that inevitably, you end up with a championship. And once you start winning them, everyone understands it. Hey, this is what we're expected to do. But you don't just start by saying, oh, we're going to win championships and we're going to think about championships all the time. And, you don't think about the macro. It's more the micro. It's the day to day, how you manage it from the ground up that kind of leads to that success. And so, that's, it's great to kind of have that reaffirmed and get that behind the scenes look.
Sure, for sure. And even guys that have like are now in Santa Cruz, like that have either been with the Warriors organization or understand what this organization is about. Well, it's been a pleasure, even though we've just started. Our first game is Friday, November 7th, but like we just started, and just the maturity and the joy that these guys come into the gym with every day. They understand that it's about the game. It's also about us having this memory and this experience together, and how we all have joy through it together. And I think that's big. I think that's huge. Some of the best teams I've been a part of as a player, it was always, how are you as a human first?
Yeah.
And hey, your family's here, tell them to come to practice. Your
Yeah.
family's here, I want to meet them, like,
Yeah.
and that's it's all family oriented instead of individualism, or individual oriented. And I think that's where you fall into the, cracks of like, now you're not being as successful as maybe you should have been, or maybe you're not living up to what you were supposed to be. I think it's because maybe sometimes the culture is, created like, hey, we're all separate entities and not, hey, we're all in this thing together. And that goes from top to bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. As we finish up, whether it's thinking about your time at Utah, and you allude to some of those things with maturity, but whether it's as coaches and you're looking at whether it's a high school guy you're going to bring in, or whether it's a transfer portal guy you're bringing in, some of the behind the scenes conversations about how can we be sure that this is the right guy to bring in, or perhaps even with the Warriors, and whether it's looking at the G League guys, whether there's conversations that you're a part of with the Warriors about who's ready to come up. When you're in those high level coaching rooms, you're sitting in the office, you're talking about like, who are the players we're bringing in? What are some of the common themes you're looking at as to, is this guy ready to come in and be a part of this team at this level?
Well, obviously, like off the court, we talk about character. We talk about, is this guy going to be a positive influence in the locker room or a negative influence? Is this guy a sponge when we're teaching the game? Does he want to get better? Is he seeking information and sharing information? Is this guy a fountain or a drain? That those are big keys. No matter what coaching room, no matter what front office, like, whether it's college or pros, is this guy a fountain or a drain? And obviously everybody probably wants to be around fountains, and you
Yeah.
don't you want to be around that sort of influence and that sort of person who's bringing that positive energy every day, instead of the opposite. And I think that's the teams and locker rooms and organizations, whether it be high major D1, whatever the case may be, junior college, it doesn't matter, high school.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a bunch of fountains and a bunch of people pouring into each other positively, you're probably going to see that come to life on the court. And you're probably going to feel it at the end of the year, whether you win a huge championship or whether you make it to the playoffs, lose first round. You're going to be like, wow, that was a really enjoyable time no matter what, because guys didn't turn on each other when adversity hit. That was something beautiful to see how they persevered through that adversity. I think those things are huge. And then on the court, obviously, people who can make .5 decisions, people who can retain the scouting report, simple as that
Yeah.
sounds, like people
Yeah.
who can remember exactly what we want to do in certain coverages on certain guys. Obviously there's the specialties where you got the shooter, you got the guy who can touch the paint and make a decision, you got the high flyers, but like guys who make multiple effort plays, guys like Guy Santos, I coached him our first year here in Santa Cruz, and just to see the leaps he's made just through being somebody who competes so hard every single possession,
Yeah.
just a competitive spirit in everything that you do will take you to levels that you never thought you would be able to go to, because, that's a rare skill. Somebody who will crash the offensive glass every single time. Somebody who will dive on that loose ball every single time. Somebody who will set solid, hard screens every single time, and then be able to notice the difference. Okay, my point guard's getting trapped, I need to slip out. Now they're in a drop. Now I need to really set it and hold. So different things like that, I think, are really things that set guys apart. And a lot of people would, if you ask that question to most people, maybe who don't know the game or view the game, maybe how I view it is like, oh, this guy can shoot it really well. Oh, this guy can dribble it really well. Yeah, obviously those things are,
Yeah.
you got to have those things to even get in the room, right?
Yeah.
But now what sets you apart? And that's what helped me as a pro, is like, how do you set yourself apart? Yeah, like you can do all these things average or okay, but like, what's setting you apart? And like I said, like offensive rebounding and just being relentless, being a good teammate, being a fountain always, and being a positive influence to the guys on the floor, being an extension of the coach, communicating at a high level, all those things set me apart to be able to be blessed with the career that I had.
Yeah, that's a really good. I think kind of goes back to some of those themes you talked about. Whether it's humility, maturity, that so many guys, when they feel like, I've made it, or it's everyone else's job to serve me, and so I'm, you're all here to, if I miss, you should get my rebound, or if you didn't pass the ball to me, it's a problem, but if I missed you, like, it doesn't matter. And so, you can have really skilled players that do miss out on those opportunities, but the guys that, are fully bought in, that, like you talked about, are those fountains that are thinking about other people. Ultimately, that's kind of what it's about. And obviously, you're doing this as a coach now, as a career, and I'm still involved in the game at a small level in high school. But I think about what the game is supposed to be and what team sports is supposed to be, that when you can build those relationships, and when you think about, man, like, what were some of my best years, it is that team that had all the fountains where guys were pouring in, where you have those relationships that now last a lifetime. And like you said, whether you win a championship or you don't, to look back on that time and be like, man, like, I really enjoyed being with this group and I learned things that I can carry forward with me. Ultimately, I think those are the most rewarding experiences. So,
100%.
man, I appreciate you jumping on with us. Now, there were plenty of little nuggets. I think, every time you got off with one of those little sidebars, definitely something that I can chop up as a little clip, man. So I appreciate it. And we'll definitely be following you guys this season to see what you're doing.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. It was like I said, it was a pleasure and an honor to hop on here with you. I love what you're doing. Send me your number on IG so we both have each other's
Yeah.
numbers so we can
Yeah.
stay tapped in.
Yeah.
And keep going, man. Keep going. You never
Yeah.
know where this thing ends.
Yeah. I will, man. All right. Well, hey, it was great to see you, and good luck with this season.
God bless you, Daniel.
Yeah. You too, man. You too. Later.